Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on website design. This is a very exciting webinar for us because the reality is that it all comes down to this one thing, website design. It's the most important job that you will probably do in your career for your company. And if you get it right, then you fly. If you get it wrong, then you will receive the criticism of every one of your colleagues, customers, shareholders, and every other sort of stakeholder as well. Website design is absolutely vital, and so we're really looking forward to talking about it today. This is something we do all day, every day. We know a great deal about, and we study and pay attention to what's happening in the market, and this gives us the basis on which to talk. With me is Ben Powell and Gil Drury, and they are both specialists in this area, and they will be able to answer the questions that I can't answer. We don't yet know what those questions are, so let's see. There is a Q&A in the bottom of the screen. Please put your questions in there. Actually, I think there's a couple in there already. So we'll then take those questions and answer them as they come up. And I would like to also encourage you to listen to the re-recording or the recording of this, which we will send to you afterwards so that you can catch up on the bits that you missed. So I'm going to pass over to Gil, who's the question master today, and he's hopefully got one eye on the Q&A. And we got, I think there's one or two in there.
Yes, so we got a couple of questions in advance on comments on social media, and a few of them are already on the Q&A section on Zoom. So thank you. So why won't we kick off with the first question? The question is, what should we be ensuring with the look of our new website? How important it is for effectiveness?
Crikey, shall I answer that then?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. So David, David is from a health and safety background.
Right, health and safety. Yeah, it's slightly different to your normal commercial website, but actually exactly the same sort of ethos should be behind it, which is that it has to communicate first and foremost your brand. And the brand is more than just a logo, of course. The brand, as we like to say, is a promise. And when you have a promise, that is communicated in a number of ways. Your logo is the obvious one, but also the type of illustration, the design, the layout, the type of words you use, the tone of voice, the hierarchy of messages that you give across, what those messages are, how you position yourself. All of that is absolutely vital. That all has to come across, wait for it, in the first glance that you have of your website. And I've no doubt that my colleagues will be talking more about the latest updates from Google, but just in case they don't, to tell you what's happening, Google are just about to launch a huge raft of updates to their algorithms, which mean have quite severe consequences for anyone involved in digital marketing, because they put emphasis in places where there isn't really much emphasis at the moment. And I'll leave it to my colleagues to explain about that. Hopefully we'll get a question that leads on to it. But with regard to the design, it's all about your brand, and it's all about communicating your messages, your brand messages. And they will be structured in such a way that you can communicate effectively and create engagement or response. So what's really important about it is understanding your brand, understanding your customers, or in health and safety's point of view, your employees and people involved in health and safety, that you know what it is that they're likely to be looking for from your website, so you can answer those questions. Sounds easy, but I can assure you it's not. And website design is the critical part of communicating that message. So get the design right and everything else follows. Don't know if you'd like to add more to this?
Quick jump in there. So I think that's a good point. And actually, thanks, David, for your question. Health and safety is all about people. And so your design wants to reflect that in its approach. It needs to be somewhat experiential. All your stakeholders from, maybe you're running training courses, maybe you're, interacting with government bodies or certain regulatory bodies about information that your company provides or services you provide. So, but they'll all be relating to health and safety on as well as a business operational level. They'll be thinking about people and putting it very user centric first. So your site might have a somewhat emphasis on an experiential kind of approach when it comes to design. Maybe it's lots of video, maybe there's lots of imagery with people, maybe there's a tactile feel to the typography and the colors in use. So all of these things would work together to reflect, as well as the detail and the intricate elements to health and safety, the themic parts of your website that relate to user-centric information would be considered in that way. So that's one example.
Fantastic. We got another question also received in advance. It's probably more like for Ben and me. The question is, our current website is not very mobile friendly. Is this still important? Very good question. Ben, what do you think?
Yes, it's still important. Mark touched on it earlier about the upcoming changes with Google and their core web vitals, introduction of their core web vitals into a set of signals that they use called Google Page Experience. And the core web vitals really focus primarily on performance. We won't go into that hugely today, but it is worth thinking about, because technology and performance generally is going to be driving forward what, in web terms, we talk about back end and front end, and we talk about design in web design terms, it's front end. So performance will be driving forward front end solutions. That's to say that design will be impacted because there may be more or less limitations on what you can do or what you need to consider for those parts of the site that receive lots of traffic. So whether it's animations or behaviors or what you serve off-site onto your page to reduce the amount of performance load on your web pages, all of these things will impact. Now we'll go into that in more detail in another session, and no doubt some articles, and because that kind of comes back full circle to one of our earlier webinars on speed and performance. We've had a kind of a laser eye trained on this for a while, but the question relates to mobile friendliness. No surprise that mobile friendliness is still in there with regards to the signals, the page experience signals that Google is basing its algorithm on. In fact, it's in 4th place, so arguably the next most important thing following the core web vitals change. And of course, mobile friendliness has been, the issue has been going on now for several years in respect to Google's last update. In fact, I think it's only just recently that they've finally indexed all the web pages in existence relating to their mobile first algorithmic changes. And I think with the issues of performance coming up, mobile friendliness and the solutions for that and the approach to mobile first design will become even more important. And also,
I might interrupt there, but a lot of our clients are in engineering and tech, and they don't believe that mobile friendliness is of great value, because if it's quite a complex technical or engineering product they're selling or service they're selling, then people will be looking at it on their desktops or laptops, not on their mobiles. However, I think, to confirm what you're saying, Google ranks you according to your mobile friendliness. So even if only 10% of your important customers look at you on their phones, the fact is that Google will rank you according to how effective it is on the phone.
That's right. Yeah. Whatever viewport you view it on, and we are moving into a sort of a post-app world where websites are expected to become the kind of portal for any information, any central information that you're putting out there. So I think it's as important, if not more important than ever now, especially now that we're finally kind of formalizing these performance changes. So we'll see lots of changes in the technology that underpins websites, but also in the way that design is rolled out.
Mark mentioned earlier the word first glance, and how the website's seen on its first glance. And I remember reading some stats about website visitors that on average, if your website load takes more than 3 seconds, on average, more than 50% of the users close the page and go back and look for a different link. So imagine a user going in through Google, clicking on something, and then needed to wait for 3 seconds. And that's a long time, especially when you're on your mobile device. You just kind of skim through things. You want things to kind of come up and load quickly. So companies can lose half of their users just by not having a good sort of speed and good performance for their website. And let alone with the new sort of algorithm changes with the way that the website loads and how long it takes for it to load, and the way that different elements move within the website. All these are going to be very important, and these will affect your ranking. So I think first glance is a good word to describe this new algorithm change. If your website loads at first glance, and obviously if it passes on the message that you want your users to see, then you have a good website. Otherwise, you'll be affected in ranking, and you'll be affected by the amount of users visiting and interacting within your website.
Yeah, so no pressure then, designers.
So we still don't know how Google is going to implement this change. So they're going to make it important, and it's going to be influential, but we don't know how big of an effect it's going to have. One of the things I've read that Google might put a little icon next to the website that would have a sort of a good page experience. So when you go through the search results, you'll see Marcom's website, and you'll see a little icon saying this website is performing well and it's quite speedy. So please click on it. Something like that, an indicator. But we'll see.
I think the good news is that they've given us advance warning of it, and it's coming in on May the 26th or the 24th. So you've still got time to ask us to speed up your website and or redesign it in order that it's really fast and works really well for the new algorithms.
Yeah, I think it's the first time that Google is going to be announcing an update in advance. So most of the time is so there's a lot of gossip about it, what's going to happen. But this is the first time that Google said, yes, this is happening and this is the date. All right, let's move on. So we got one more question from the sort of Q&A session. Now we got a question. Our branding is looking tired. Will it work in the context of a new website design? Perhaps Mark can help.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, actually, isn't it? Because I talked a little bit earlier, didn't I, about branding and how it's important that the website communicates your branding. Of course, if it is looking tired, then you've got a problem. Modern website design is very unforgiving, really, because everything is pared back to an absolute minimum, which in order to be mobile friendly. And what that means is that you have relatively few design assets to play with. So if those design assets are out of date and tired, then of course it's going to look, it's not going to be attractive, and it's going to send the wrong signals to the market. So that first glance again, if say your logo or the type of pictures you're using are the wrong sort of pictures, or they're just old-fashioned, out of date, then instantly you're going to turn people off, and they probably won't even read a word of it. So really important part of your design is to get the branding up to date and up to speed.
Yes, I think it's important to see, and I'm sure it will come up again in other questions, but to see a new web design as an opportunity. And as Mark said, it's if it's time to look at your brand, then doing a new web design is a perfect opportunity to do that. Many companies aren't ready to change their branding, so your web design needs to be in sympathy with that too.
I think it's true to say that as brand consultants, we take a fairly conservative view to branding, in that you don't rebrand unless you absolutely have to. So there might have been an MBO or a purchase of the company by another company, or there may have been some kind of event that has caused the old brand to become completely redundant. If it isn't, don't change it, because it takes a long time to build up brand equity. Now you can change it subtly, so you can give a slightly different font, you can give a slightly different color tint, but don't throw out a whole lot, because 9 times out of 10, when you throw it out the whole lot, you end up with a complete loss of brand equity, and you have to start again from scratch, which, if you've been in business for a few years, you do not want to have to do.
Thank you. We've got one more question coming up on the Q&A. Ben, do you want to read it out and perhaps answer it as well?
Yeah, sure. It's a question from one of our attendees called Felix, and Felix asks, what would you advise for a pilot website testing a new product? I'm just sending off a quick response to clarify what Felix is asking, but I have to assume that it's, or at least I'll start my response making the assumption that it's for a startup company or certainly a pilot campaign for a new product, for a pilot product. If you're an established company, it's a bit easier to, in the context of design, integrate your product with the existing design, or integrate your product campaign for existing design within existing design. But then you might, as it's a product in itself, it may be that you want to elaborate or develop the visual language of your brand and your existing look and feel, your existing visual guidelines to accommodate something modular, such as a new product. In terms of how you approach that particular campaign in releasing that product, you'll want to think about all the different assets required in terms of digital marketing and offline, of course, that are going to be required to promote that particular product, whether it's social media campaign, a scheduled set of posts for social media to either existing or unique audiences, promoted material around that. It may be that you need to produce some unique designs for the social media templates, for instance, that you're going to put out in your announcements. You might want to think about your newsletter design. Is the one you currently use fit for purpose, your company-wide one? Does it need to change in line with the design and the look and feel around your particular product? Does it need to speak to your sort of campaign audience as opposed to your general audience? Are you selling this product to a new group, a new customer base, or is it an existing one? So there's, where, your house design, as it were, would need to be more prevalent, where familiarity would help that. So it's when you think about, again, trying to, if we could talk a lot about marketing campaigns for products, but if you're thinking about the design specifically, it's about really developing the visual language around your brand and around your products, and how you release those such that they have their own identity. We have come up with a few tips in an upcoming article, and we also shared them on social media about how to break down the components of a good visual language in the context of design, and the sort of things you want to be thinking about in developing that, whether it's adaptability, scalability, how elements of the design might be modular, and this can all be tied to your core brand identity, and then spill out and become a construct for your products and services.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, if you've done your background marketing properly, you'll know where it sits in the market and what your competitors are up to. You'll know what need your new product is supposed to be fulfilling in customers who hopefully are out there. So you will already have a plan, and it's then a question of developing that visual language and those hierarchies, that hierarchy of messages, in order to communicate what you know in your plan to be right, or hopefully you've done your research, so you know that it's probably right. So it's a lot of design for new products actually is a given by the time you get to the drawing board, but you still have to develop that visual language that Ben's talking about.
I'm going to suggest, Felix, if you're interested in more of a specific or a detailed answer, you can send us your phone number on chat, and we'll give you a call after the webinar. It's up to you. We're happy to help. Our next question is about is from Poppy, and she works in comms, and she's been asking about cheap themes and templates look great, mainly on WordPress. Why spend a huge budget on design support? So rephrasing, why should I go to a designer to help me design the website and not just use the ready built templates that you can find across the web? And there's plenty of those. And maybe I can start and you guys can kind of chip in. So I think you can use these templates in the beginning. I'd say if you've got a very straightforward website that doesn't require a lot of pages or a lot of functionalities, you can. From my experience, and I'm sure Ben would agree, it's very hard to adjust these templates to make sure they fit your exact brand. So when you download them, they look very pretty. They've got all the stock images that the provider is given with them. And as soon as you put them on your website and you're trying to adjust them into your own brand, it's becoming difficult. And you'll see that what you see is not exactly what you're going to get. And they require a lot of work and manipulation to make them work. Another massive issues of these pre-built templates is performance. And talking about the Google update coming up and speed becoming a very important thing, and other elements relating to the web vitals, that these templates don't perform very well. Even if they say on their website that they're very fast or work well, they don't always do. And they would affect your ranking on Google and the experience that your user is going to have whilst browsing. So short answer is yes, you can use them to start with, but if you have a more advanced website that requires a bit more thought and customization into it, then we definitely recommend speaking to a professional.
That's yeah, I would say exactly the same. And also to reiterate that there is a learning curve with these themes and templates, especially if you expect to use them straight off the shelf, as Gil alluded to. You do have to often buy additional packages of support that come with it for periods of time, such that you're able to reach out to the original developers to develop any functions or any specific requirements that you might have. There's a lot of great products out there, don't get us wrong. We're not going to shoot holes in every theme framework that's out there. There's a lot of fantastic products. We use them ourselves, so do our developers, but we do watch what the developers do, and they tend to start off on their journey with these sort of off-the-shelf theme frameworks and realize they hit the limitations. Most of the senior seasoned developers that we work with all kind of plump for custom designs with custom built frameworks beneath them, not least for, as Gil said, for performance issues. The other thing to remember with these demos that you see, they look great, but it's because people have put a lot of time into making them look great. You can have you see a theme framework, you've got 20 different demos that, 5 of which would sort of work for your business. It's very attractive, and but very quickly, as you'll see, you'll install the theme and upload the demo and, oh, well, actually, we don't have that photo, or we don't have this, or we can't use that, and we need to change this. And the hierarchy of the page is not quite right there. So, yeah, the knowledge is still required to do what you need it to do, and that is to be effective as a website. When we talk about design is as much about the function and the capability of something as it is the look and feel. We, as marketers, we often are drawn into, thinking about the audience and how something works and how to make it more efficient. That's what we do. The design is often, we've all got a raft of experience in design, so the design tends to be something we just expect to be of a high standard. But design really is both sides of it. It's function and form, and it's not just the colouring in department.
And just to add to that, if I was to put together all the hours we'd spent digging people out of the poo who started off on a standard template and realised actually there's rather more to it than they think or they thought when they set off, those hours have stretched halfway around the world. I mean, a lot of people get started on it and then find they can't complete. For whatever reason, maybe it's just the pressure of the day job, because at the end of the day, you've got to be out there earning a living, and you're not going to be earning a living building a website. You're building a website, but it's also adding extra functionality you suddenly realize you need, or that they said was easy and you find out it's not so easy. Really, we've spent I spent so much time. It's not much time, but we've so often had to help people and dig them out of a hole. So just buyer beware.
Indeed.
And one more thing to add, I often deal with website, and I'm not a designer myself, so even though I've been dealing with it for quite a while now, I always come to Ben and ask his opinion. I think someone that has sort of studied it and does design for a living knows so much more than they would say. They've got a lot of experience of kind of combining things and understanding the way that the page would look and things that I wouldn't know myself to do. So I think speaking to a professional is definitely something that I'd recommend. So thank you, Ben.
I'll take that compliment and run with it. Thank you.
No, it's true. Okay, we got one more question here on the chat, on the Q&A, saying we need to update the website content easily ourselves, but none of us are designers. Is it possible? So I assume that perhaps this question is coming from Peter. He's in engineering. I assume the question comes to whether they're using a content management system or not. So the old-fashioned websites were built by HTML, so it was very hard to go in and change any text. I think now most companies will have a WordPress-based website or similar software that are a little bit easier to work with. They do take a little bit of learning. What we tend to do with our customers, when we think about building the website, even on WordPress, we create sort of custom fields that let people that don't really understand WordPress very well the ability to easily create new pages. So instead of going in and creating a brand new page on WordPress, they can just go into a section and they'll have boxes of content. So it'll be a box saying, type in the title, another box saying, type in the call to action, another box saying, add in your testimonial, upload your picture. So it's very straightforward. Anyone can do it. And as soon as you click save and publish, that will then go in. All the different elements will combine into a beautifully designed page. So that's something that we do to allow our customers easily change and create new content on their website.
Yeah, that's it's vital. Self-managed websites are a strong choice. I think it's a good investment for a company to think about what skills they've got in-house that they can, develop their website as they go. It's really important that they do that, especially for posts and pages and everyday operational access points for your websites, new information. And we obviously have a different sort of role when it comes to support for that sort of thing. But what we do ensure is that our products leave our office ready to use. And as Gil said, we put in these global design rules really that can be carried forward easily through the website. So you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I haven't got the space around that image the same on this page as I have on this page, or that heading is not matching up with that heading, or this bit of copy is not formatting correctly. It's ensure that it's important. It's part of our quality assurance that you'll be able to go in, and engineers will love content management systems because it clues in the word. It's a system. You can go in and you can manage the hierarchy of your content and how it's organized, and it will just be in theory delivered on the front end of the website, looking consistent, clean, and ensuring all your brand guidelines are honored.
Thank you. We got maybe another minute or two to answer one more question. So Ruth asked, we have a new brand identity. We can't just edit the logo, colors, and fonts on our existing website. She's a solicitor. Who wants to answer?
Okay, I'll jump in quick on this, and then you guys can fill in the gaps. We've touched on it a bit in all of these, I think, not least how the amount of work that goes into providing a kind of a visual, developing a visual language, but also how that is managed and guarded throughout all your communications. If you've got a new brand identity, then it must mean you've got new brand, you've considered new brand messaging and strategy. So I would have, from my point of view anyway, Mark, you can, I'll segue to you in just a second, but I would have thought that, just the edited logo, colors and fonts is not really going to go far enough.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, if you change your brand, it's probably because something significant has happened in terms of the messages you need to get to the market. Therefore, it's not really just a question of changing the color and the logo. There's a lot more to it than that, and need to consider that. If you perchance have changed your logo and your sort of suite of colors, then and just for the hell of it, then I suppose there's no reason why you shouldn't just change it on your website. But people who you're doing business with will look at it and wonder what's going on, and how are you going to answer those questions? Why have you done it?
And we have done our fair share of reskins, is what they're known in our studio as. But frankly, the assertion that something can just be kind of tinkered with in web terms versus fully scrutinized, it doesn't really meet reality. As soon as you start into rolling out a new brand identity, very quickly you realize where your content is otherwise lacking or have holes in it, and or that certain areas of your website suddenly just don't work with the new brand identity, don't live up to the baseline or the benchmark that you've set with your new brand. So that's just the reality of it, one to be aware of.
Okay, perfect. We had a few more people asking questions. We don't have the time to answer these today, so please do feel free to put your question in the chat, and your email or phone number, and we'll follow up and give you a proper response. Go ahead, Mark. Do you want to sort of?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I just want to give you the date of our next one, which will be on the 20th of May, Thursday the 20th, and we look forward to seeing you there. We'll be talking about different aspects of SEO and social media and website design, and it will prove, I'm sure, to be as interesting as it has been today. I hope you've enjoyed it and learnt a lot from what we've been able to share with you today. And thank you, everyone, for all your questions. I hope we answered them satisfactorily. To repeat what Gil said, please send me a message, or one of us a message. And if you want to continue the discussion, I would be more than happy to do so. Thank you and goodbye.